Are you unhappy with your Sony colors? Well, I was. Hey guys, Omar here, and I've been meaning to do this video for months, and I've put it off because it's just so involved. And color is really personal. For example, I don't love the color choices in this photograph, but I kind of prefer this. And so you see, you might have actually preferred the first one. Now we all gravitate to different colors. I prefer more true to life, more National Geographic, more planet Earth sort of tones, but you might like more muted colors. So it's all a personal preference. So in this video, I'm gonna try to give a lot of solutions to the Sony color problems that you may be having. And then hopefully one of those will help you or steer you in the right direction so that you can find the colors you need, just like I did. Now, there's a lot of things we need to talk about before we start giving you solutions. Number one, we're all at different abilities. We could be talking to a beginner right now. You just bought your Sony camera and you're like, whoa. Or you could be an experienced pro that came from a different system and you're kind of struggling with skin tones, which is what happened to me. So understand that people watching this video are at different abilities. Now, some of the stuff I talk about in this video may fix a person's problem, but may not fix your problems because we're all at different abilities and we're all looking for different colors. Do you see why this video was so hard to make? Next, your goal may be more accurate colors or your goal may be more pleasing colors. There's a difference. Camera companies sort of pick what colors they want to produce in skin, in greens and blues, and you may be looking for, hey, that dress doesn't look the same way on screen. Pleasing versus accurate. Think about which one you want to achieve. Next factor to consider is we're all looking at different screens. You may be looking at a monitor, you may be looking at an iPad or phone, and all that stuff affects colors, okay? Also, our brains are wired differently. So when I see red, you may not see red. You may see a different shift of red. So what I call red and what you call red may completely be different. See why this video is so difficult to make? So to combat that, you may want to calibrate your monitor. Buy a monitor calibrator, which will calibrate your colors so they're accurate. And if you can't get that, then you can try photographing reference items, things you know the colors of. Like for example, for my clients, when I show them album covers, I like to put a little Altoid tin there because the brain will see the red and the white from the Altoid can and can kind of figure out what the other colors are. Next factor to consider is Sony is still trying to figure out color. The reviews I've seen from the newer cameras, their color science and what they produce is more pleasing than if you have the Sony a7 II, a7 III, a7R III. So think about that as well, that the newer cameras are a little easier to get great images straight out of camera. And the older ones, you're gonna have to, play around a little bit. Okay, what's next? What's next? Okay, another factor to consider is your preview on some of the LCDs is not what you get on screen. If you're adjusting your images for the LCD on the back, it's just a waste of time because the images on the back, the tones, the colors do not match the JPEG you get. The EVF in some of the cameras, like the a7 III, is a little bit more color accurate, but still is off just a tad. So that makes things just a little bit more annoying. I need to interrupt here. See, I'm Omar the video guy. That other guy's photographer guy. If you're concerned about Sony colors in video, just know that Omar the video guy is not really a videographer. So what I do, I'll put my settings on the screen, I control my white balance for video, and I pretty much use the Sony a6400's standard profile. I bring the shadows up. I don't like to do any video post-processing, and I think it looks pretty okay for YouTube. All right, let's go back to the photographer. Okay, quick solutions for beginners. So I did a whole series on lighting and how to get better photographs. I'll link that up below. But a lot of the problems could be your beginnerness, and we're here to help. So one of the first things you need to understand is that light has certain colors. So you may be blaming your camera, but you're at fault. So what you kind of want to do is understand that light has different shades of color. It could be really warm and orangey, or it could be very cool. Your camera is not as smart as you are. So when you take a photograph, sometimes it gets it wrong. So what you want to do is called white balance. You always want to white balance your images before you take them. Now, by the way, we're only talking about JPEG shooters. If you're trying to take a shot and just shoot JPEG, which is an image that's finished or cooked in your camera, those images you have to think about your white balance beforehand. Now, if you go to your menu where it says color white balance image processing, the first thing you want to do is priority set to AWB and change that to white. Sometimes the standard doesn't really get it right and the images are a little warmer than they should be. Set the white balance to white to begin with. Now, auto white balance shifts. So if you point it at different things, it will change the color each time you take a picture. But if you're first starting out, you could start with auto white balance white priority. And then the next thing I would try is set it to one of the presets. So set it to sunlight and take all your pictures in sun, the little sun that's on there for white balance. See if you prefer that. One of the Sony hacks is to try fluorescent day white. That may fix your problem. You may prefer those photos a little better. The next thing to try is to go to the K value so that you type in a certain K. So start at 5,000. Normal warm pictures are 5,600 to 6,000 on the Sony cameras, and then cooler ones are 4,400, things like that. So pick your K value for the tone you like. And then for accurate colors, you're gonna have to get a gray card and take a custom white balance setting. Again, experiment with all this stuff to see which one works best for you. Personally, I use a K value. If I'm photographing my clients, I'm around 5,400 or 5,000. I'm a RAW shooter anyway. I don't really shoot JPEGs on my Sony system, and I always take a picture of a gray card for the lighting conditions. Now, you should think about color problems as well. We've talked about this in past videos. Check out the lighting videos below. But if you shoot on grass on a sunny day, everyone's gonna be green. If you shoot with, around brick, everyone's gonna have a red tone. Even if you shoot at the beach, which is beige, that's gonna give everyone a warmer tone. Your environment affects the color that's coming out of the camera. So when you're testing out your Sony colors, go somewhere neutral, a gray sort of parking lot, or something that's all white, and then start testing your Sony colors there. If you're shooting on grass, forget it. You're gonna be like, my pictures are green. Now, if you do need to shoot on grass, use a reflector or something white to block the grass, and that will give you more pleasing skin colors, especially under the chin. Pro tip right there. Now, a good starting point if you're starting with Sony is turn picture profile off, go to your creative styles and keep it on standard. Turn the contrast down either -1 or -2. I found that that's a little bit of a flatter, more pleasing photograph. Sony straight out of camera JPEGs are a little too contrasty for my liking. You might like them more contrasty. And bring the sharpness down -1 or -2. Your images will still be sharp. It's just the Sony images are so hyper sharp that sometimes it works to bring the sharpness down, believe it or not, for your JPEGs. Now, something else to try on your JPEGs if you're trying to get good straight out of camera images is go to your DRO settings. Your DRO settings bring detail out of the shadows. So the higher your DRO, the more flat the image. Now, if you have your DRO set to auto, it's gonna shift and you're gonna get different pictures. I don't like things in cameras that change, image to image, scene to scene. I like to have consistent results to figure out what the scene is doing. So if you go to DRO, you can either turn it off, but then you're gonna get shadows that are a little too dark. So my recommendation is if you turn your DRO off, you probably have to raise your contrast in your JPEG, or keep your DRO at level 2. That seems to be like a nice middle ground. Now, why are we talking about contrast if we're talking about color? Because contrast affects color. The more contrasty the image, the more deep the colors will be. Okay, so just know that. All right, hopefully that fixed some people's problems, the things we just talked about. But it didn't fix my problem. When I first shifted over from Canon, I wasn't happy with my skin tones that I was getting. There was just something off. And so for a professional workflow, if you want good skin tones, my recommendation is to get accurate skin tones. If you start from accurate, then you can figure out where you want to go. Using Adobe and using Sony, for me, didn't really work. Now, if you are using Sony files with Adobe, the Adobe profile, I found that increasing the vibrance a lot helped with bringing the skin tones out a little bit better. It's probably better to get accurate skin tones as a starting point so that you can figure out where you want to go from there. So that involves taking a photograph of a color checker passport or some kind of reference and using software to create your own color profiles. And that's personally how I get better images from my Sony files. I was working really hard with what Adobe was doing. I was changing the color profile from Adobe to camera matching. Check out the color profiles that Adobe gives you, but that's just Adobe guessing what Sony wants to do. So the ones that say neutral and camera light, Adobe still doesn't know what Sony wants, and Sony doesn't even know what it wants. So I would ignore those if you really want. I would try that next. Sorry, I don't want to say ignore because those can help you. You know, some of us shift green and some of us shift red. So after you bring your raw files in and pick a color profile, you might want to work with your tint and see if that helps. But the best solution is to use, like I said, a color checker passport or some kind of reference and use software. The two big companies are X-Rite and Data Color. And I found that as soon as my X-Rite color checker passport kicked in, when I made my own profiles, I started to love the colors that were coming from the sensor. Just rich skin tones, amazing, vibrant greens. So I would say if you're having the most problems with your skin tones in Sony, I would just get a color checker passport, and all you have to do is take a picture of it before you start your session and just make your own profiles. This actually isn't just for Sony. Towards the end of my Canon 5D Mark IV, I was just using a Canon 5D Mark IV reference as well, and the colors were even richer from the Canon. So for Fujifilm, I just use the JPEGs. Now, this is my full-time job, and people pay me to have beautiful portraits and beautiful event images. So I want to make sure that everything looks great. If you're just a hobbyist or you're taking pictures of your kids, who cares what your kids look like?